frenzy has concluded, at least for the New York Rangers, in all likelihood. And the big, really deal of the day is a 7-year contract being handed out to Vincent Trocheck. And I don't love the fact that it's 7 years, but the fit is really perfect. The Rangers need a second-line center, and Trocheck really checks off a lot of boxes. The Rangers just saw him against the Carolina Hurricanes in the second round of the playoffs, and Trocheck was really one of the better Carolina Hurricanes. And honestly, in those 2 rounds against the Bruins and the Rangers, Trocheck really performed well. Had 6 goals, 4 assists in 14 games, was a +7, really good on faceoffs. This is a legit second-line center. And by it being a 7-year contract, the money isn't terrible. It's a 5.6 per, which is, ironically, we'll talk about it, which was the same money that Andrew Copp got. So Copp gets a 5-year contract worth $5.625 from the Detroit Red Wings, so he goes home, Michigan native and Andrew Copp, and Vincent Trocheck, a Pittsburgh native. And it's funny, the Range, Evgeny Malkin re-signs with Pittsburgh, and that kind of opened the door to Trocheck going to the Rangers. It seemed like Trocheck, there was some interest, probably some mutual interest with the Pittsburgh Penguins. Once Evgeny Malkin re-signs with Pittsburgh, that's when it really became clear that Trocheck might become a Ranger. And look, I'm totally fine. And it's similar to Barclay Goodrow, but of course, this is a much more significant contract, where Goodrow was a 6-year contract worth about, $3.6 million, where because of the increase in years, the cap hit is a little bit less. And the Rangers could, really now are a team that is very up against it cap-wise. The Rangers really are not going to be able to make a whole lot more moves. Trocheck is the big signing, and now he will play with Artemi Panarin. And the Rangers needed to have a different look stylistically. The second line with Panarin and Strome, it was way too east-west, way too, not physical at all. Didn't really go to the dirty areas. Vincent Trocheck is a much different player than Ryan Strome. What's funny, there's a lot of similarities there, I will say. Both are right-handed shots. Both are actually had the same birthday, July 11th, 1993, ironically enough. And their statistics are somewhat similar, but I think unequivocally, Vincent Trocheck is just the more well-rounded player than Ryan Strome. And maybe it's just from watching Strome as a Ranger these last, 4 seasons or so, that's addition by subtraction. So Ryan Strome, we don't know yet. As I'm recording this, Ryan Strome's still a free agent. But he will not be back with the New York Rangers. There is no way that's going to happen. And so Vincent Trocheck, Gerard Gallant coached Trocheck with the Florida Panthers. So, when Trocheck was a young player in this league, it wasn't Gallant wasn't his first coach, but he really was his first coach when when Trocheck became like a full-time player. When Trocheck, becomes a guy that starts playing, upwards of 70, really, he played 50 games in 2015, and then he played 76 in 2016 when the Panthers made the playoffs. At that point, Vincent Trocheck is a full-time player, and so Gerard Gallant knows Trocheck. And I think it's interesting that you had a situation in this Rangers-Hurricane series where you had the front office literally watching, and I kind of, on the one hand, it's Strome versus Trocheck. On the other hand, it's Copp versus Trocheck. Either way, because Strome and Copp were on the same line, Strome was the center. That was a matchup that they saw pretty frequently. As we saw the Stahl line kind of match up with the, in games in Carolina, the Stahl line would go against the Zibanejad line. And I think a lot of the time, maybe not all of the time, but I think a lot of it, you did have that matchup of the Trocheck line versus the Strome line. And like I said, Trocheck, he's a top penalty killer, really good on faceoffs, and he's shown offensive upside in the past, specifically on the Panthers under Gerard Gallant, where he had 75 points in 2018, 31 goals, 75 points. There had been some injury issues in 2019, certainly. But Trocheck, upon going from Florida to Carolina, initially when that trade was first made, there was a little bit of a transition process. But, injuries, again, were a little bit of a problem in 2021, but it was a shortened season. But Trocheck, 47 games, 43 points in 2021 for Carolina. So that's very good. And then this past season, the points were a bit down, 81 games, 21 goals, 30 assists, 51 points, but a plus 21. A really responsible two-way player. It's funny, in speaking last season, about a year ago, I really wanted the Rangers to get a true two-way center. And it's funny, I mentioned Jordan Staal. And at this point, Jordan Staal, probably more of a shutdown defensive type than Trocheck. Maybe Trocheck is slightly worse defensively than Staal, but has definitely more of an offensive game. But I think this was more than anything, and we'll talk about everything that went on today, this was really the key move. And so the Rangers move on from Andrew Copp and Ryan Strome. And the Rangers gave up a lot to get Andrew Copp, but it doesn't even seem like there was really a whole lot of interest from the Rangers in bringing really either of them back, honestly. And Andrew Copp, I think there was appeal for Copp to return home to Detroit. And he got a good contract himself. It's a 5-year deal, like I said, worth $5.625. So Trocheck gets 2 more years. And like I said, Andrew Copp, he didn't really play a whole lot of center with the New York Rangers. It was mainly Ryan Strome. So they either didn't feel comfortable giving Andrew Copp that second-line center opportunity or just kind of knew that it wouldn't work out. So that's the thing. Vincent Trocheck, we know that he can be a successful second-line center in this league. Andrew Copp, that remains to be seen. Copp, a really good third-line center with the Winnipeg Jets. But do we know that he's a legitimate second-line center? We don't. The statistics were really good. I felt like in the playoffs, maybe Copp was dealing with an injury, but I really felt like it was not what I would have wanted it to be. And Copp was really your second-line right wing. He was not a center. Vincent Trocheck, no doubt about it, is a second-line center who has offensive upside. Again, the 7 years is a little bit, it's more than I would have wanted, but if it keeps the cap down, which it does, then I'm all for it. Because again, the fit is perfect. The fit is exactly what you'd want. So Andrew Copp gone on Detroit. Ryan Strome still a free agent. We'll see where he lands. His contract will be less than Trocheck or Copp's. It will be. I'm very curious to see where he ends up. But either way, he's gone, and that's addition by subtraction. Frank Vatrano has signed a 3-year contract with the Anaheim Ducks, and I thought Frank, was it not? All these trade deadline acquisitions are all gone. One of them still is a free agent, but it sounds like he'll be gone. There was some interest by the Rangers, but it sounds like he'll be gone. But Frank Vatrano signs with the Ducks, and I like that he added sort of a shoot-first mentality to a team that really needed it, but it wasn't a fit. Vatrano, the money wasn't going to work. The Rangers are pretty deep on the wings. It just wasn't going to happen. So Vatrano gone. Kevin Rooney, who was a decent signing from the Devils a couple of off seasons ago, he signs with the Calgary Flames on a 2-year contract and worth $1.3 million per season, which is actually too much for the Rangers. The Rangers cannot afford $1.3. Chris Drury had said today that the Rangers, the one thing that they're still looking at, besides, of course, re-signing Kaapo Kakko, which I would expect to happen, and we'll discuss that, when that does happen, is it looks like the Rangers are looking into a cheap fourth-line center, like a Kevin Rooney type, when Kevin Rooney signed with the Rangers. Kevin Rooney was a very cheap signing. I think it might have been $750K, somewhere in that range. It was definitely, I'm almost certain it was less than $1 million. At most, it was $1 million, but I think it was less than that. And I think the Rangers are looking for that outside of the organization. So Kevin Rooney, now a Calgary Flame. Greg McKegg signs with the Edmonton Oilers. Obviously, his role was a bit diminished as the season went on. And obviously, really not a big deal there. But McKegg does sign with the Oilers. Justin Braun, on the defensive side, Justin Braun back with the Flyers. So the Rangers acquired Braun from Philly. And now Justin Braun goes back there on a 1-year deal. So all of these trade acquisitions, the one person I'm leaving out is Tyler Mott. And I think there might have been some mutual interest, but Drury said today it's just not going to fit. It's too tight. The cap is in a place where Tyler Mott is very likely to sign elsewhere. And so Tyler Mott is, not going to be in the plans. And so just looking at it from the forwards, players that really either were hurt last year, hurt or weren't with the team last year might have very key roles. As I think about Sammy Blais, it was a short sample, in the trade with the St. Louis Blues involving Pavel Buchnevich. You got to think Sammy Blais is going to play, be a regular on this team. We'll see where he fits in. Vitaly Kravtsov is another. Vitaly Kravtsov, who knows? He could find himself on that right wing with his fellow Russian Artemi Panarin and Vincent Trocheck. Like, that is possible that Vitaly Kravtsov really might find himself in a pretty advantageous position. So the kids, for many reasons, one being there really aren't many other options, are going to get really key roles. I think about players like Dryden Hunt, who that's a player that will likely be in the fourth line mix. I think Johnny Brodzinski, that's another one. Ryan Reeves, who I'm not the biggest fan of, and especially at a 1.7 or so 1.75 cap hit. I assume he'll be back. I honestly think if you gave the Rangers truth serum, I feel like while I think he definitely does help locker room wise, if you could sort of rid yourselves of that 1.75, I think you'd want to do it. But as of now, you got to think Ryan Reeves is going to be on that fourth line. But, there's not a whole lot else they can do. And it'll be interesting to see Will Cully, with a good camp, could he make the team? Brennan Othman, I think it's a bit of an unrealistic ask that maybe he somehow makes the team. I think he'd really have to perform well, and I think the future is bright with him, but maybe not this season. And then defensively, you'd think the Rangers will add a cheap veteran defenseman, because right now, Braun gone, and I don't think the Rangers really trust Libor Hayek, but I suppose he could be in that seventh defenseman mix. And, we'll see what happens with the likes of Zach Jones and Nils Lundqvist. But I do think that you'd want to have Brendan Schneider with a veteran-type defenseman. I like, as much as I'm fine if you want to try Zach Jones and Braden Schneider together, like, I'm fine with testing it out. But it feels like the coaching staff wouldn't trust that, but we'll see. Which speaking of the defenseman, Patrik Nemeth is traded to the Arizona Coyotes. So Patrik Nemeth, that was a bad contract by Chris Drury. And you pay the price, because I'm very happy that the Rangers rid themselves of that contract, because now the Caps, that's $2.5 million that are fully gone. The problem was with the Patrik Nemeth deal, why a 3-year deal? If you want to make that a 1-year deal, maybe 2, but a 3-year contract for Patrik Nemeth, that was a colossal fail. And so the Rangers trade Nemeth's contract to Arizona, and they trade away a 2025 second-round pick, as well as another conditional pick. It'll either be a third round. It's the Coyotes choosing either a third round pick in 2024 or a second round pick in 2026. So the good thing about this is these are draft picks well down the road. I do like that, but this could be 2 second round picks. The Rangers in return do get defenseman Ty Emberson, who to me, look, I can't say whether he'll be a part of the plans at all. He was a teammate and maybe even a defensive partner of Keandre Miller in Wisconsin when they played at Wisconsin. So Emberson, that could be something there. That may not just be a throw-in. So you have to keep that in mind. So Ty Emberson, and like I said, the Rangers are kind of lacking in defensive depth, although he's just another young defenseman. So that could be something. It's of note. And like I said, there's that history with Keandre Miller. But the key is that the Rangers get rid of that $2.5 million in the cap hit to Patrik Nemeth. But like I said, 2025 second rounder and either a 2024 third or a 2026 second. So that's either going to be 2 seconds or a second and a third. But the cap space was crucial. As it is, the Rangers are barely able, like once they make the Capo Caco re-sign, like you don't have a whole lot else to work with. Like I said, maybe a fourth line center on the cheap. So you really you could have went the buyout route, but I think the cap space was more important, even if it meant getting rid of draft picks. The moral of the story is really bad signing by Chris Drury, who's done a lot of good, but that Patrik Nemeth signing was a bad one. You pay the price, but luckily that cap hit is off the books. Nemeth is on his way to Arizona, which is why, to my point, it'll be interesting to see if the Rangers do sign some cheap veteran defenseman that could maybe fill in as a 6th or 7th D-man. Again, I don't like Libor Hayek, so I don't really want it to be him, but I guess you never know. And then goalie. So some goalie movement for the Rangers today. Behind Igor Shesterkin, your backup goalie is now Jaroslav Halak, former Ranger killer. And the third goalie now, which is just funny to me, is Louis Domingue. So spicy pork and broccoli, I guess that's what it was, which was pretty annoying when it was happening with the Penguins. And, it ends up working out for the Rangers where the Rangers beat the Penguins. Louis Domingue was kind of a big reason for that. I think to Game 6, the winning goal by Chris Kreider. So Domingue kind of helping out the Rangers in that sense. And now he kind of takes over that Keith Kincaid role. So Domingue will be the third goalie. And your second goalie, more importantly, is Jaro Halak. So Halak, 1 year, $1.55 million, a very cheap deal. And the hope here is like Alex Georgiev, there was just more of a cost to Georgiev. And I didn't think that Georgiev was all that consistent. Halak now, he's he is now 37 years old, been around the block, really has done well against the Rangers over the years. Honestly, as far as back to Montreal, but really I think you think about when he was on the Islanders for 4 seasons, really did well with the Islanders, and then, was good on the Bruins too. Last season, it wasn't so great with the Vancouver Canucks. I feel like the last couple of seasons for Halak has been a downward trend for him. Still above a .900 save percentage, which is better than Georgiev this season, and you trust Benoit Allaire. This, honestly, for me, is kind of the first veteran backup the Rangers have had in a long time. It kind of feels like when the Rangers signed Marty Biron. It kind of feels like that, although Biron ended up with the Rangers for 2+ seasons. Actually, no, more than that. No, more. Marty Biron was actually on the Rangers for 3+ seasons, 2011, 12, and 13, with a little bit of 2014 as well. The Rangers had Andre Pavlik, but that doesn't feel the same, whereas Biron had been in the league for a while. So the Rangers, I'm kind of happy to go with sort of a veteran goaltender who knows his role. He knows he's behind Igor Shesterkin. With Georgiev, it felt like, he wanted more. And I understand that. And now he's going to get the chance to Colorado. But Jaroslav Halak, we'll see. And look, Louis Domingue is a third goaltender. If Halak struggles, I wouldn't love the idea of Domingue as a backup. But look, he, when it comes to third goalies, look, like, you could do worse than Louis Domingue. He did okay with the Penguins in the playoffs until it kind of unraveled at the end there. But like I said, Halak, just as recently as 2020, he had a really good, him and Tuukka Rask were a very good duo with the Boston Bruins. Halak had some pretty solid years with the New York Islanders, has been in plenty of postseasons. Like I said, going all the way back to Montreal Canadiens, he and Carey Price were a duo. Then he was on the St. Louis Blues for a while, had a cup of coffee with the Capitals before signing on with the Islanders, and then the Bruins, then the Canucks last year, which was kind of a rough year in Vancouver for Halak. But we'll see. Again, a low-risk 1-year deal. When you have Igor Shesterkin as your goaltender, it's just good to go in that direction, and I think Halak is a good pickup. So, a pretty busy day today in the National Hockey League. And, I'm curious to still see where, the likes of Johnny Gaudreau end up. I think there's a very good chance that he will end up in the Metropolitan Division, whether that be with the Devils or maybe the Islanders, or we're even hearing the Columbus Blue Jackets might be interested in Johnny Gaudreau. I'm curious to see where Nazem Kadri ends up. Maybe he'll end up back with the Colorado Avalanche. But the Rangers are pretty much set. There isn't a whole lot more to be done. Like I said, I do think that the Rangers will re-sign Kaapo Kakko. They will make maybe a depth veteran signing. And Trocheck, I just think it's a reasonable enough contract. The 7 years, it's definitely a couple of years too long. I mean, by year 6 and 7, that's going to be, pretty rough. Definitely. He, by then, especially the type of player he is. But I just think that we've seen him in the playoffs with Carolina be successful. And this just changes the whole dynamic of that Artemi Panarin line, which they desperately needed. With Strome, everything was on the perimeter. Nothing was near the net. Vincent Trocheck, he scores greasy goals. It's not pretty, but there's also offensive upside there. Like, he can produce. He has had a 75-point season. So this is a really good player. I think Ranger fans will like Vincent Trocheck. And I think Chris Drury obviously rids himself with the Patrik Nemeth deal. That was a bad job, but at least he, tries to correct the problem. But I think that Drury did a pretty good job today, and really addressing the needs. A second-line center, a backup goaltender, and additional cap space. So, again, free agent frenzy complete for the New York Rangers, and we will see if the Rangers can follow up on what was a very successful 2022 season, and we will see what happens for the rest of the offseason. Like I said, not expecting a whole lot, but we will see if these moves are enough to get the Rangers over the top next season.